Hello and welcome back to another episode of Slice and Dice Ecom. I'm Josh, the founder of the agency, and once again we are joined by the lovely
Holly.
the big boss. I wasn't sure I was saying you're
I thought you
lovely.
were going to say my name.
No, lovely Holly.
I forgot that. Yeah, I'm Holly. I'm a content strategist with ClickSlice.
Awesome, what an intro.
Yeah.
I like that. Welcome back. So in this episode, what we want to do is discuss a really big topic that I would probably say 95% of brands get wrong, which is pretty much striking the balance between good SEO quality content and good sales content on your ecom brand that actually converts that traffic into users. It's I would say it's a problem that's getting worse and worse, especially with AI tools coming out now and brands just relying on ChatGPT and Claude AI to just produce content. It's like you're kind of missing the whole mark, what we're trying to achieve and do here. So let's start off this podcast with the first question, which is, all the brands that are watching, they know they want to rank high for the keywords. They know keywords are important. They know SEO is important, and they also want to convert that traffic into sales, right?
Sure.
So how can they strike that balance between SEO content and content that actually converts?
Yeah, sure. So when I'm writing, I always think that we have two audiences, right? We have our robot audience and we also have our human audience.
I like that.
And so our human audience is our customers, and they are looking for quality content that answers the questions for them and that helps them to make a decision, make the best decision for them. And our robot audience is making sure that we've ticked every box and included correct keywords and written great headings and all of this type of stuff. And I think that it's really tempting when we're writing SEO or when we're writing SEO content to really focus on what Google wants from us and to focus on that to-do list, but neglect our customer. That is where this balance comes from, and this is where we end up with that really focused on these headings that include all of these strange keywords and robotic sounding stuff, and our customer is going to land on that and think, oh no, this isn't for me. This is a load of rubbish. Click off, and then what's the point of that? That's the thing. We have to ignore SEO in some cases in favor and make decisions that actually are not great for SEO, but would favor our customer. So an example of that would be a nonsensical keyword. Should we cram it into a heading? No. Should we try and just work around that and ignore that? Yes. And I think that's really important, that balance between those things.
Yeah, we actually do that on our website, don't we? We know how important keywords are, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense putting that keyword in the heading. But you also need that keyword in the heading to rank and get the traffic in the first place. So that balance is really difficult. A really cool way we overcome it at the agency, which we do for a lot of our client sites as well, when it's not applicable, doesn't make sense, is you can actually change the size of your main heading text. So most people think you go onto a website and the big heading text is your H1 tag, which 9 times out of 10 it is. But it doesn't mean you can't make that H1 tag the same and just make it tiny and then have another paragraph text below, which is now your main heading. That's what users read. So if you go into our website, ClickSlice, and go into, our e-commerce page, obviously it ranks number 1 for eCommerce SEO agency, eCommerce SEO services. But the main title on that page is tired of overspending money on ads every month. But if you look above that, there's a really small text, which not that small, it's readable, but it says eCommerce SEO agency, and that is the H1 tag. So it's a really cool, unique, I wouldn't say hack, method, strategy. Sounds a bit better, I guess. That works really well. Awesome. So you touched on a part about, striking that balance and writing for the user, and you got the robots. Now, some brands that I know we spoke to recently, literally in the last 3 months, have said, just copy our competitors. Just do what they do. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that that is I'm not totally against that. Of course, if your competitors are doing this well, awesome. Let's go for it. Let's see what they're doing well. But let's just not duplicate their website and copy that word for word. Let's look at what they're doing and then also spot those opportunities. And I think that's really important also when we're looking at creating a content strategy that is oriented for SEO. Because if your competitors are already ranking number 1 for that kind of keyword, you're not going to get that number 1 spot in a month's time. No. It might be a couple of months before that happens. So we need to then think, okay, what are the places that our competitors are missing, and then going in. So I'm not against using a competitor analysis. I think actually that's a really important part of a content strategy. But what I am against is when businesses sort of like go in and just duplicate, and they say,
Copy
this
paste.
is our competitors are ranking number 1 for this, so I want that exact same page, and I'm just going to do exactly the same as that, just rewrite their content. Like that is something that we unfortunately do see sometimes. And
More often than we like to admit as well.
it's not a good
If you look at it
strategy.
from Google's perspective, right? Google's ultimate goal is to return the best website to users, right? To give users the best user experience, so they come back and use Google again, not Yahoo and Bing, right? So if Google sees, your competitor, website 1, that has this type of content, and then your website 2, and it's identical to website 1, like, you're not really giving Google any reason to rank your site above theirs as well. So it's actually counterintuitive from an SEO perspective as well, not just the conversion part that you touched on.
Actually. And what you said there actually is really important, that it's like Google is going back to the user, right? And they're looking, what's the purpose of Google is to provide the best results for the customers that they're serving. And so for us, we need to take a leaf out of their book, like we also need to do that. We always need to go back to the customer and think about how are we serving these people over everything else. Like that's so important. And I think in marketing, it's not just in SEO, but in everything, we can get really focused on metrics and numbers and figures, and we forget about that human element behind it. And that's what coming through with this AI content, right? Like,
yeah, it's getting worse and worse, right?
Yeah. And, just to have pages on your website, you're going to generate like AI generated rubbish, but how is that really serving your customer? Like that's the problem.
It's not.
And that's what eventually is going to happen, right? That Google then is just going to de-rank all of those pages that were written like that and reprioritize human written content again. And that it's such a hard balance to get.
I think what I'm quite happy about is a lot of our clients, especially our larger clients, even our smaller ones, actually appreciate human written content as well, and they understand the value of it. And sometimes I have conversations with Matt, which those who are watching previous episodes will know. Matt is our head of sales at ClickSlice, and he tells me all the time he speaks to clients, and sometimes these clients are getting quotes from other agencies who are producing content, but there's no content person on their about page on the website. It doesn't exist. So like, who's writing this content? It's like, it's actually just Sally, who also does operations and does marketing and does the Google out. She's just plugging into ChatGPT.
It's just the head of sales, like on ChatGPT.
Yeah, like, can I speak to this content writer? No, they're on lunch breaks. Like, you should be demanding a call with who writes the content if you have a question about the content. Or at least email them, right?
Yeah.
So I think, like, that's the difference between agencies that will probably charge a small retainer and a larger retainer. Like, you literally get what you pay for in SEO. And as you already know multiple times from clients spoke to in the past, if you make a mistake on your website and you lose that trust from Google, it's very hard to regain that and build momentum again.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, well, I think we're talking now about like what makes good content, right? Like what, and we're throwing this out right now. Like we're saying, yeah, that's not good. But what does that actually mean? Like, what does a good piece of content look like? And for me, a good piece of content is something that answers the question that your user is looking for and keeps them around until the end of that piece of content. So the longer that they spend engaging with that content, the more likely, the more that I consider that to be a good piece of content. So I'm looking always at that kind of metric of like how long people are staying on the page, how far down they're going, all of this type of stuff. When we think about things like AI content, is that really written in an accessible way? Is it written in a way that's enjoyable and engaging? I mean, I find myself often, my eyes sort of like glaze over, and I live and breathe content writing. So I'm like always reading content. And so if my eyes are glazing over, as someone who spends all their time in this and like lives this and loves it, how are your customers who are just looking to the answer, looking for product? How do they respond to that kind of stuff? And that, I really think that a human element and that storytelling, that narrative, we seem to have like gone away from that. But the good news is that's a real strategic opportunity for many e-commerce brands where their competitors 100%. Are generating a load of waffle. You can really stand out and you can really make a big difference.
No, I like that. She said about engaging the users, which obviously is massive. Anyone can acquire traffic through SEO, but if the traffic's bouncing, you're going to lose that rankings over time because you're sending in negative signals to Google, right? So what would you say from the different types of content you've written for our clients, and maybe even ones in the past before, like what types of content is typically the best for engaging your users? From an SEO standpoint as well, of course.
So it's kind of tricky because I think that content the best content sort of like depends on where your user is and where they are in your sales funnel and where they are like coming to your page. But I think, and I've said this before on this podcast just a few weeks ago, that we should be looking for content that is varied and that engages people. So that could be blog posts. And I love a blog. Don't get me wrong. I still think a blog is so relevant and so valuable, but also it could be like long form guides. It could be videos. Why do you think we're sat here in a podcast studio?
There's a reason for it.
Like, you know, there's a reason for that. And it's because people want to see that. People want to engage in those videos. People want to see that you're a real person behind the screen. And all of those things are huge competitive advantages in content. And I think that's really, really important for businesses to understand. SEO content isn't just blogs. It's not just articles.
Way more.
It's so much more. And there's so much potential and creativity to be found in that. It's not just hitting your monthly blog quota.
Yeah. And people consume content in different formats, like you said as well, right? So this podcast, obviously, this is, for those who are watching, is visual. Those who are listening is audio. Those who will read this, because it will get transcribed and put onto the website as well, written. So it's the same message. And guess what? Videos just happen to rank better in YouTube. So we can now tap into the same audience on YouTube as we can organically through SEO. So it's crazy. I think brands just need to think a bit more holistically and just not have the little blinkers on and just thinking it is this, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And it's predominantly what's happened in the past, right? Like you said, people just publish blogs after blog after blog. So going back to the main topic really of SEO and content, right? Brands will be listening to this and saying, okay, I know SEO content is important. I need to make sure my content converts. But like, as we discussed in the previous episode a few weeks ago, there's different parts of the content funnel, right? Top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. So how can you ensure your content aligns with the right user intent? Because that obviously has an impact on the stage of the funnel, right?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing, obviously, is we've got to go to the keywords. And keywords are so much more than just a checkbox or like something that we've got to include. Keywords are really the data set that Google provides us to understand our business, our customers with. So it's really important that we map those keywords to the user intent. And so that we're thinking, okay, what kind of keywords are we receiving? At what part of the funnel are these people at when they're searching for these terms? And how can we create content that responds directly to that? But also, we need to create content for different stages of the funnel. And I think also we need to be a little bit creative with those things. So for instance, we already mentioned this like different diverse ways of dealing with content. But people who are at, for example, people at the top of the funnel, they're looking for answers to their questions. So they might also be looking for deep dive product reviews, product guides, that kind of thing. But then as we come down, maybe they're looking for like a Reddit post. And that's something that we could be like we could be taking advantage of that. Like we could be looking for some like user generated content that is a review of the product in action and that kind of stuff.
More authentic as well.
Yeah, really authentic. And I feel like that kind of thing, we could really take, it's all about SEO as well, even though it might not necessarily include a keyword. All of that kind of stuff like aligns our content with the user's intent and like what they're looking for.
Awesome. You touched on saying probably a few minutes ago, actually, you said keeping the users coming back for more and more. I think that's really important because if you acquire that traffic and it doesn't purchase and it goes away, yes, you can retarget them, but like, what about if you can keep them coming back because they really just loved your content? It was so high quality, they got the answer they needed and they felt satisfied. Do you have any like tips and strategies for any brands watching that they can potentially leverage to keep users coming back to the website over and over again?
Yeah, I think one of the things that brands that do really well do is that they're creative and that they have a unique voice and a unique presence online. So an example of this is a pretty popular brand in the maybe like 5 years ago they really exploded was Glossier, who are like a makeup brand, and they have this really unique way of communicating about their products. They have like quite a narrative. They've got a really unique tone of voice, and all of this makes them really seem like an entity in their own way, and that when people buy from them, they feel like they're building a relationship with them, and that's really a vital thing. I think that we get that brand identity that comes through. And again, you know, that perhaps that's probably what I was trying to say there when we were talking about AI content, that it doesn't capture that brand personality. But then also things that I want to see more of, as I want to see more of sort of like pushed for ecom brands are like interactive content. We already see a lot of this like you know, when you land on a page and then it's like pop up and it's like a
Spin
wheel
the
or
wheel.
something, or spin a
Yeah,
wheel, like those kinds
gamification
of
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
But what about like polls? What about like choose your own sort of character game or something like this that should really like be entertaining and engaging and keep people coming back for those kinds of experiences through your content? And I think that kind of creativity is something that we really need to foster.
No, nice. I think that sounds good. A lot of good ideas in there. And I think I've lost count of how many brands I see. You go into the website and they've got that little wheel slider, the gamification. You click it and you get 10% off or you win a free gift, whatnot, right? So that's all great. So brands watching this will be like, okay, I may need a poll, a quiz, a calculator, something more engaging, right? To satisfy my users and keep them coming back. But we don't just want them to come back. We want them to come back and spend, get the credit card out and make a purchase, right? So how can we use those strategies to actually generate more conversions for, you know, all the Shopify websites listening?
Right. And I think that this comes back to this idea about like the bottom of the funnel content and creating great call to actions that are like really irresistible for your reader. And this is honestly, I could probably do a whole podcast topic on just on call to actions
Maybe we
and this
should.
type of stuff. Yeah, maybe
Next time
we
you're
should.
on, yeah.
In a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that for brands, when you know you've got your pop-up spinning or whatever, like, and I don't want that to just be like the takeaway from this. You know, I'm not saying everyone should just install a pop-up spinner, but what I am trying to say is that we should be a little bit creative, and that kind of applies to that final step too. And many businesses rely on this like buy now, shop now, kind of like call to action, but there's so much more that could go into that. So for instance, we've already spoken about promotional, like rewarding. If they've come to the bottom of a blog post, could we now have a pop-up that only those people that are at the end reveal this kind of thing? So it's personalized. Yeah. Could we then talk a little bit about what comes next? What's after the call to action? Like what about the buying experience? And could we use a little bit of like curiosity? These kind of like creative things that turn something from just buy into a little bit more of an immersive experience. I think this is something that our perhaps a traditional SEO, or like I say traditional, like a generic SEO strategy doesn't include. And we need to be pushing those kind of things because that's that competitive advantage that e-commerce brands in such a competitive industry, that's what's going to make people come back and buy more.
Making a lasting impact for sure. Right. Awesome. Lots of value. Once again, didn't expect anything different. No, also, do you have anything to add on that, or if you round out this episode?
Yeah, I think that's everything from me. Maybe look out for that podcast episode on call to actions.
Coming to you in a cinema screen very soon. No, thank you all for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any other questions you'd like Holly to discuss in future episodes, please make sure you put it down in the comments below and we will get to it hopefully in the next few weeks/months.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.